Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important hearing, and I want to thank our witnesses for your expertise in this important matter. Biden's EPA is prematurely proposing to revise the current fine particulate matter standards that will have disastrous effects on manufacturers, especially those in my state and in my district in Georgia. Furthermore, these heavy-handed top-down regulations often do not weigh the compliance and implementation, and oftentimes lies in the hands of states and the business community. Mr. Byrd, let's talk about the science for a moment here. Mr. Byrd, you noted in your testimony that states are co-regulators with the EPA in implementing the fine particulate matter standards. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Additionally, you mentioned the Clean Air Science Advisory Committee, CASAC or CSAC, I don't know, is required to have a voice from state regulators. But in the Biden EPA review, only one state regulator was on the panel, and that panelist's view were considered the minority view. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct, and okay. Overwhelmingly so. It was 1 versus 20.
Yeah. Considering that states are the ones tasked with implementing these standards and are responsible for compliance in these standards from the EPA, does it make sense that states' voices should be the minority view when it comes to assessing how to establish new standards or the science?
It does not.
What is the value of balanced views with people who actually have to implement standards and design compliance programs?
I think in the case of this standard, looking with an eye to implementation, understanding where the sources of the emissions are that are actually leading to the health impacts, if you can't tie the sources to a plan that you can develop to address that standard, that needs to be addressed in the standard setting process, and also understanding that the projected improvements can't be attained if there's not a path to get you to attainment.
Also, this is very one-sided. I understand that EPA has repeatedly failed to ensure the advisory panel examines the economic impacts of implementation, which is required in the law. Would that be of value to the states?
It absolutely would be, because that is under this cooperative federalism, the burden is put on the states to then create a plan that works for them. And without that thoughtfulness in the standard setting process, it does put a burden on the states.
So this is very top-down minority, administration minority in the House requirement, basically, without input from other states or input from scientists who really know what they're doing in this area. Mr. Hunt, you demonstrated with your graphics that my state of Georgia is currently in compliance with the standards as they are set at the 12 micrograms per cubic meter. Now, again, the reason that we mentioned, and I hate that Texas, I guess when August asked, Mr. Pfluger asked his questions, he'd go concentrate on Texas. But let me tell you, Texas is growing and Georgia's growing. There's a reason for that, okay? Because these manufacturers have found a friend, and we have great leadership in our states, and they are complying with the standards as they currently exist. But if these standards are lowered, guess who it's going to hurt? The states that are growing the fastest. So tell me what's going on here. The Georgia Department of Natural Resources has data showing that the Augusta area, which is my district, would not be in compliance with these proposed standards. So what we're talking about today is going to affect the very people that I represent and their ability to provide for their families, their country, and their church and their communities. Is that a correct statement, Mr. Hunt?
Yes. No, we need achievable regulations that allow for those jobs to be created, those manufacturers to thrive, and to make the products that Americans demand. We make wood products that store carbon in the built environment. We do a lot of recycling of paper and making that into new products. And so we feel ourselves are a very sustainable industry, and we just hope that the regulations can also be sustainable.
And we have the cleanest air on the face of the earth. In fact, in my district of Georgia, we got welcome to the 12th district of Georgia. We got the cleanest air available anywhere in the world. Okay. Now there are some problems in this country maybe New York, maybe Atlanta, some areas like that. But don't penalize my district because of the problems with other cities. We need to, and that's the same thing with the climate change issue. It's the cities, these large, populous cities that are causing this data supposedly out there on climate change. So with that, my time is up and I yield back.